evening. You're now watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Vincent Chan, and here's a look at tonight's top stories. A historic breakthrough for the UN Climate Summit as rich countries agree to establish a loss and damage fund. People come out in force today as charity walkers and racegoers both benefit under relaxed COVID rules. And the world watches closely as the World Cup gets ready for kickoff in Qatar. In a first, rich countries have finally agreed to set up a fund which would help vulnerable nations stricken by climate disasters. While the deal at the end of the UN Climate Change Conference has been hailed as a historic moment, some delegates were disappointed by the lack of development in reducing emissions. Azam Khan reports.
Time is of the essence when it comes to the existential threat facing our planet. After working all night while sleeping in hallways, disheveled delegates finally carved out an agreement on the last day of the UN Climate Summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. The deal is hailed as a victory for developing nations, which for decades have fought for some form of compensation for the economic damage indirectly caused by their wealthier counterparts. They argue that while rich nations emit the bulk of the pollutants, it is the poor countries which feel the brunt of the resulting natural disasters, such as floods and droughts. According to the agreement, the Loss and Damage Fund would initially draw on contributions from developed countries as well as private and public sources. But major hurdles remain, including the status of China, which is still classified by the United Nations as a developing country. That drew the ire of the United States, who argued that China cannot receive payments and should eventually contribute to the fund. The fund would largely benefit the most vulnerable nations, though middle-income countries that are severely battered by climate disasters could also receive aid. However, key decisions on reducing emissions and keeping the 1.5-degree warming limit that was agreed in last year's summit, unfortunately, still hang in the balance.
A fund for loss and damage is essential, but it's not an answer if the climate crisis washes a small island state off the map or turns an entire African country to desert. The world still needs a giant leap on climate ambition. The red line we must not cross is the line that takes our planet over the 1.5-degree temperature limit.
The world is now 1.1 degrees warmer than it was in the 19th century, while carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere are 50% higher. Scientists warned that if the trend continues, it could lead to a cataclysmic rise in sea levels and heat waves. Azam Khan, HKIBC.
Chief Executive John Lee described his many meetings as fruitful as he wrapped up his 5-day trip to Thailand. Apart from attending discussions with world leaders at the APEC summit, Lee hosted a dinner for local business representatives.
I once again highlighted to them the strengths and advantages that Hong Kong can offer to them, particularly after the new policies that I have introduced, which will allow Hong Kong to develop its extra strength to increase its competitiveness and advantages. They appreciate my thinking, and they would like to come to Hong Kong where their time permits.
Lee also revealed that he sat down with breakfast with colleagues from the SAR government's local trade office. He then visited a grocery store, as well as the Chinese embassy in Bangkok and local enterprises. Lee will return to Hong Kong tonight, while Commerce Minister Algernon Yao will fly back tomorrow. Around 15,000 people came out in force this morning for a charity walk in Tseung Kwan O. And there's also good news for horse racing fans as more COVID rules were relaxed at the racecourse. Janice Lo reports.
Under picture-perfect skies, thousands of people came out in force to take part in the community chest walk for millions. The long-time charity event made a comeback for the first time in 3 years, but participants still had to pass a raft of COVID checks. Only those possessing a blue code on their vaccine pass were admitted. While eating and drinking were prohibited, walkers still had to present a negative rapid antigen test result and submit a health declaration form. Masks were also mandatory, and with the mercury hitting 27 degrees this morning, it was no easy feat to complete the 6 kilometers walk. This boy admitted he felt slightly out of breath with the mask on. But I'm used to it already, he said. By committing to a donation of $300 or more, participants were able to set foot on the brand new Cross Bay Link in Chiang Kwan-O before it officially opens to the public next month. Starting off at the junction of Po Yap Road and Po Shin Road, participants first entered an underpass before turning right until they reached the entrance of the Chiang Kwan-O Lam Tin Tunnel. But the tunnel was out of bounds today, so walkers had to turn around and walk towards the bridge, which terminates at Lohas Park. While the trip was expected to last 90 minutes, many took longer as there were plenty of photo opportunities. Another walk is scheduled for the first quarter of next year. In another sign that Hong Kong is returning to normal, horse racing fans were able to forego cumbersome procedures when entering Sha Tin Racecourse this afternoon. A scan of the Leave Home Safe app was all that was needed, while vaccine pass checks were no longer necessary. Eating and drinking were also allowed again on the stands. The popular beer garden at Happy Valley Racecourse will also resume on Wednesday nights, along with live band performances. Janice Low, HKIBC.
Hong Kong may be touted as a food heaven, but that wasn't the case for 48 tourists. In a major embarrassment, the first inbound tour group to arrive in more than 2 years wasn't able to dine in at restaurants because of the government's COVID rules.
In Hong Kong, the meal is really nice. The guests want to eat many things, for dim sum, for seafood, for noodle, for rice and chicken, or many things. The guests want come to eat many things in Hong Kong, but they cannot eat in the restaurant. How can they do?
The group from Thailand had initially planned to apply for an exemption but couldn't do so in time. While the visitors were required to conduct only one PCR test upon arrival, they had to submit RAT test results daily, a process which took 2 hours to complete today.
Maybe some people cannot go in, cannot check in because many things to do. Like this, many things to do. For example, we go out from the airport. We must to do from the application for have the four digits, the green one, the first step. The second step, we go to leave home safe. And then the third step, every morning we have to use the ATK. Some difficult for many people if they don't know.
Customs have seized a batch of 10,000 smartphones at the shores of Tai-O in a crackdown on smuggling activities. But first, Chief Secretary Eric Chan has described it as ridiculous after another national anthem blunder at an international rugby match. Here's Janice Low again.
The Chief Secretary didn't mince his words when responding to yet another national anthem blunder at a Rugby Sevens match. An online broadcast for a qualifier between Hong Kong and Portugal came under fire after the SAR's national anthem was for a protest song in the caption. Organizers blamed the error on a careless graphics operator. Eric Chan described it as ridiculous that such mistakes happened one after another. The government number 2 said he will write to the respective rugby bodies to express strong dissatisfaction and demand a full probe. The Hong Kong Rugby Union will also need to devise concise guidelines for organizers and players for future matches, he added. While 7-seaters are hardly used for smuggling activities, they still couldn't evade the watchful eyes of law enforcement officials. In an anti-smuggling operation, customs officers spotted several men moving cartons onto a speedboat at the shores of Tai-O. The men eventually fled, leaving behind 10,000 second-hand smartphones with an estimated worth of $11 million.
我哋相信呢一啲嘅貨物咧，如果能夠成功偷運翻去內地咧，將會被翻身再出售。
Senior investigator Wong Chi-kung believed the handsets were destined for the mainland, where they can fetch up to 5 times the current price after refurbishment. A man said to be in his 60s was airlifted to Eastern Hospital after falling down a slope on Lantau Island. The man was reportedly hiking with his friends along South Lantau Country Trail this morning when he lost his footing and rode down a 30 meters slope. A government flying service helicopter arrived and airlifted him to the hospital. Janice Low, HKIBC.
Overseas again. Former U.S. President Donald Trump snubbed the idea of returning to Twitter after the social media platform's new owner, Elon Musk, reinstated his account. More than 15 million users responded to a poll from Musk on whether Trump, who was booted off the platform following the Capitol Hill riots, should be allowed back. Nearly 52% of respondents said yes, to which Musk then tweeted in Latin, "The voice of the people is the voice of God." When asked about the poll, the former president said that although he has always liked Musk, he didn't see any reason to rejoin and would stick to his new platform, Truth Social, which he launched earlier this year. Onto the weather now. 1 or 2 rain patches tomorrow morning, but expect sunny intervals during the day. Temperatures will range between 23 and 26 degrees, turning cloudy from Tuesday. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for a Sunday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Vincent Chan. Thank you for watching. Good night.